Welcome to DOS Geek. I am so excited to share this with you finally. We have a FreeNAS server up and running. We are running this on a used server that I got, a Zyratex IBM HS1235. However, it's got a little bit of upgrades from what you can see here. I actually bought this off of eBay from your new gift here. Made an offer, got a fantastic deal. Actually, I made an offer on a completely different server. They said that they had an issue with it. I could wait for the parts to come in, or they'd send me one of these, but they would ramp it up to the specs I wanted for a ridiculous price, and a ridiculous price I got. So shout out to your new gift. That's why they have 100% positive feedback. They gave me a fantastic deal. So I have a server like this, except with these beautiful specs, and I'll show you mine. It is sitting in the garage right now, safely, as safely as I can, utilizing my mesh network, the Netgear Orbi. It is connected to its own mesh router down there, and we have it all set up. I've been playing with it for a couple weeks. I am not a FreeNAS expert at all. So if you're watching this video as an expert, feel free to throw pointers, suggestions, and things out there. I am an absolute noob who is doing this only because I wanted to check out FreeNAS versus Synology. Now, up to this point, what I've used as my backup solution to distro hop and to check out new distros but keep my files safe is the Synology NAS. It is a very cheap version. I think the cheapest version they sell, which is the 216E version. So very slow, but it's amazing the software that they have. We'll get into that a little bit. And everyone kept telling me in the Linux community, once you go FreeNAS, you're never going to go back to your Synology again. And we're going to take a look at some of the things that I've learned, what I have set up now, and just show you around. I am by no means suggesting you follow any of the settings or things that I've done. I've learned this completely on my own, utilizing only their documentation, what I've read of it to get things working, and just simply playing around. But I do have some pretty cool things set up for me that I'm really enjoying with this server, and hopefully it inspires you to go out and start learning some things as well. I also want to let you know I have all of this local only. I do not have any ports open for this server, so I'm not accessing it outside of my home, and a big reason for that is security. I don't trust my own ability to secure this thing properly yet until I really understand the interface more. But once you've installed FreeNAS, which is a very simple process. If you've ever installed a Linux distro, you're going to be able to install this. You burn it to a USB, you plug it in, you follow the prompts, boom, you're pretty much done. Now, you'll have some options to set up in there, for instance, how you want your RAID configured, etc. You can see how I have my disk configured. We have 7 1 TB drives set up in a ZFS pool here. Because of the RAID configuration that I chose, it leaves me with about 5 TB worth of data, which is plenty good enough because you've got that redundancy. So no matter how much space you put in here, depending on the RAID level you choose for backup, then you're going to lose some of your space in there for that redundancy. So if one drive goes bad, in my case, I can swap that drive out, put a new one in, and should not have any data loss issues in there. At least that's the theory. That's what it's for. So we've got plenty of memory. We have very powerful 16 cores that we're utilizing here, and I've set up some really cool stuff. Now let's go through this interface, which, by the way, shout out to FreeNAS, absolutely gorgeous. I put out on Twitter, look at how gorgeous this is. Someone commented, I like the old version better, which I'm sure there's one of the things that if you just get used to it, of course you're going to like the thing that you spent all your time learning. But I think it's gorgeous. I think the second you boot into this and you open up the interface, it just feels powerful. Like, this whole process gave me goosebumps. And I know FreeNAS is really targeting enterprise, small, medium business, system administrators, people who know what they're doing, not me, for sure. But at the end of the day, I still fell in love with it. I'm still able to navigate and get around, and they have really good documentation. So the first thing you have here is your dashboard, of course, which you can see CPU usage. You can check your temperatures, basically just an overall telling you everything that's going on, bandwidth, the disk that you have, and how you have things configured. Under your accounts, you can set up different groups and users, standard to any type of network situation that you would find in any network software out there, right? You're going to set up various groups. Within those groups, you can set up different permissions. You can set up different users to access it. And you'll want to go in there and configure, of course, besides the root account, your own user account and set the proper permissions and things in there. And so you can see the users that we have. Some of these are system default users. And of course, we have DOS Geek in here, which I created. And then, of course, you have certain users that can be set up for various software processes, apps, and things that you have, like SyncThing. Under system, we get information about our system. We can go to general here and just get information about our ports and web GUIs and things, our NTP servers, different boot environments. If you're interested in that, we have tunables, updates. Of course, here is where we can do a system update. System updates are beautifully done in the FreeNAS setup. I keep wanting to say Synology NAS because I'm so used to using that. But in the FreeNAS setup, it's very simple. You just do fetch and install updates. It will reboot your server. You're up and running. There's no big deal here at all, which is pretty much what we expect for us users who are used to being in Linux. Of course, this is more of a FreeBSD-based system, as I understand. So it's not your typical Linux, but there's a lot of Linux things you can do. There's a lot of cross compatibility here, which makes it very, very cool as well. You have certificates and support set up. You have different tasks for cron jobs, init jobs, rsync tasks, things that you want to do. So if you want rsync tasks to run, you could set those up here for any type of job that you're wanting to basically repeat and you want hands off. You've got your network information here for how you've set up your interfaces, static routes. I do highly recommend not using DHCP. But actually setting a static IP address for this, because anytime you have a power outage or anything along those lines, even though I have this on a battery backup, if that dies, then you're going to get a new IP address, and everything you set up to interface with that IP is going to need to be changed then. So it's very easy to set up a static IP address. Definitely suggest you do that. Within your storage, you have pools, you have snapshots, all of your disks, you can import disks. So let's take a look at the pools that we have here. So this is my main pool in here. We have the RAID Z FreeNAS, and we have backups, and you can see I have some IO cages here, and within these IO cages, I have some jails set up that are running things like Plex, RSL Sync, and SyncThing. So it basically jails or containerizes some of these plugins that you install, which I'll show you here in a second as well. And you can choose what control or where those jails can have access to specifically and what users can get to them, which is a really cool way to add all of these features within FreeNAS, but still keep that security very high from accessing other portions of the drives that you set up. Within here, the plugins is just a really cool area to play with and learn all of the various things that are out there. I have not played with all of these plugins yet, but I plan to and learn them. I've got a ton of learning to do. I feel like back in 30 Days of Linux, when I was first learning Linux, this is what it's like here. And we'll kind of get into comparison with that between Synology NAS here in a moment. But for now, take a look at these applications. So you've got Backup PC, Bacula, Brew Server, ClamAV, Couch Potato, Deluge, MB, GitLab, if you want to set that up, IRSSI, Jenkins, MadSonic, MineOS. So that's pretty cool there. And it tells you, if you hover over what each thing specifically is, you can set up your own Nextcloud server, Plex Media server, QBitTorrent, Radar, Redmine, SyncThing, which I have, Tarsnap, Transmission, if you want a BitTorrent client on your server running there, WeChat, XMRig, and ZoneMinder. I believe one of these is actually, XMRig, I think, is a miner. ZoneMinder is the open source closed IRC television software application. So you've got a lot of toys here to play with, and of course you can go and install your own if you want, but I think they have a nice suite of plugins. Now, because if you're utilizing this for a home server like I am, and of course you can look at the minimum specs that you need for a FreeNAS server. I went with what Ask Noah Show recommended. Noah recommended the type of server that I should get that he felt would be powerful enough for me to grow into and really learn on. So you've seen the Xeratex IBM that I have there. But for other folks, you can go with something a little smaller, a little more, something that your spouse is not going to get mad at you about for having in your house to run this if you want. Now, if we go over to the Synology NAS system here, because I still have this set up, you can see this is how they do their software. It's kind of a very different interface altogether. You almost get that operating system like you're in a desktop environment when you log into the Synology NAS versus being on the FreeNAS. And you can see these are the what they call packages instead of well, what did FreeNAS call them? Plugins. There we go. So they're called packages over here, and you've got Audio Station, Cloud Station Server, Download Stations, Hyper Backup, Photo Stations, PHP. So you've got a lot of different choices here. I would say you have a lot more options that come default that you can just install from an interface in the Synology NAS than you do over on FreeNAS out of the box. That doesn't mean you couldn't go install every single one of these on your FreeNAS, but you're not going to do it one click like you can in the Synology. The other thing I like about Synology is it has software that is made for the client as well to do the things like backup. Because at the end of the day, most important thing to me is the backup. Now, when I was going through this in Arch, of course, in the AUR, you have all of the Synology packages available here. But right now I'm on Fedora. I've been playing with Fedora 30. Absolutely love it. But went in here to download some of the Synology Assistant or the Cloud Station Drive and realized they only have Ubuntu packages available here. So you're either going to have to compile your own package for Fedora. You could see some of, which is kind of odd to me, some of the pieces of desktop utilities that I would never use, like a NoteStation client. They have a Fedora for, an RPM package for, but otherwise, the things that I would consider most important, they don't. So at first, I kind of looked at this as a big advantage for Synology over FreeNAS, but then when I realized that in Fedora or other distributions, if you're using OpenSUSE or something like that, you're going to have to go compile your own package anyways to get it to work. So it's just easier to connect it through your network drive, just SFTP into it from your file manager or from the terminal and move your files that way. So in essence, that kind of makes them even. So unless you happen to be on Ubuntu in Linux that you're using as your system, you're not going to have a client from the Synology NAS anyways. I can't really compare networks or the speed of the interface between Synology NAS and FreeNAS because the Synology system I have is so underpowered. I think it only has like 512 megabytes, maybe a gig of RAM. It's a very slow system that I got. So I really cannot compare, wouldn't be fair to the giant server. But I think these are two competitors that you see. Now, if you're on Ubuntu and you use Synology NAS disk backup system, it has a nice client, nice interface that's easy for you to basically get your backups up and running with your Synology almost immediately, meaning you don't have to spend a ton of time configuring or setting up. When it comes to the FreeNAS system, you have options like Deja Dupe out there, which I'll show you now. And Deja Dupe is basically what I think for somebody who's not a system administrator. I don't want to set up these huge rsync commands to pull stuff in and set up cron jobs. Not yet, anyways. I just want to get my stuff backed up. Deja Dupe does a fantastic job of being an easy software client for you to install that'll interface with your FreeNAS system, and you can basically back up, choose what you want to back up. These are the most important folders for me. You could choose what you want it to ignore, and of course go straight SFTP into your FreeNAS server and do the backup there and set up a schedule. Deja Dupe is my favorite for that. Of course, if you want Syncthing to move certain files and sync them between all your computers and things like that, that's also a very easy and useful tool that you can set up. So here's an example of Plex that I've set up. I happen to have a Plex Pass, so I was able to do the premium setup here through FreeNAS. So I went through the apps here and installed Plex Pass here, which is just one click. And once I had that set up and moved some files over, I could play some videos. But because I don't want to get flagged, I'm going to mute the audio and just play this for a second. But it's very fast. You could see it immediately will start to play, and you can skip around anywhere you want into the video.
The purpose of this
because the
device is
server is
that
just
if
such a beast. It really has no problem at all. I've tested this streaming stuff to my TV and other media devices in my house, and it's so snappy. Like it just feels like you're running a video natively from a DVD player or something. So they do a fantastic job with their integration of different available plugins there. So comparing the FreeNAS to the Synology NAS overall, I think the Synology, obviously they need to look at universal packaging so they can be available on any Linux system. The software they have, that would be a big advantage. But if you get a Synology NAS for home use, you're going to be able to set it up. If you want to not think about it, you don't really want to learn new stuff in the network administration, you just want backups done, the Synology NAS is great. I think when it comes to really wanting to understand the ins and outs of properly administrating a true enterprise grade backup solution, FreeNAS is quite amazing. It's amazing because somebody like me who knows nothing about it can still get in there and configure it well enough to be able to get things up and running and learn as I go. But also has all of those deep configurations and options in there to tweak to make your backups and your redundancy and everything as secure and frequent or infrequent as you want it to. So it just has a lot more built into it that you're available to do. And that's not including the fact that we can, jump in and create, open up the shell here and do things directly into the system, such as set up different software and things along those lines. So one of the things I absolutely love about FreeNAS that I've not seen this available in the Synology NAS, I don't know that I've gone and looked for it, so maybe it's there. But in any case, is setting up virtual machines. This is really helpful for me for testing out new distros and things that come out for the podcast that I do, Destination Linux, because a lot of times I need to go in there, see if there's accessibility options, whatnot. I could burn it onto a USB and boot into it, or I could set up a virtual machine on my own system. But I've got this big giant server here. I can set up virtual machines here. You can also do other things with virtual machines. You could set up connections between the different virtual machines. You could be running different software and services off of one of the virtual machines that you have here for software that may not be available. For instance, if you want to do Dockers and things within Ubuntu, you could do that here through a virtual machine that you've set up. So the coolest thing I think is when you go to add a new virtual machine, it's super simple. You're just going to go through this wizard. It's going to ask you operating system, how much CPU memory you want to dedicate towards it, the hard disk that you want to set up, installation media, which is the ISO file that you downloaded, confirm those options. Boom, it's going to be up and running. But then directly from here, I can do a VNC. I've done this even from my phone, okay, where I have logged in through the web browser into FreeNAS and ran a VNC right from my phone to look into one of my virtual machines. Now, I don't have anything fancy set up here. I think I was just checking out 1904, but you can see it works very well here. We have a nice virtual machine. We have a nice web-based interface to get into it. And of course, you can go and set up your own, Remina or something else if you want to interface with it outside of VNC, but it's just so nice within the tool itself to be able to launch and run that. And of course, you can get to your shell here and do all the fancy things that you want, install what you want, set up things, delete things, remove permissions. You don't have to use this beautiful GUI interface. If you don't want to, you can do everything right from this terminal. Now up here, we have things like settings, and we can go into preferences, and we have a couple of options here to choose different themes if you want, which is nice. And we can also go to our alerts setup, and it lets me know there's new updates that are available for my system. We can change passwords, and you can go to the legacy web interface if you prefer that. But I started on the legacy web interface, did not like it near as much as this. To me, this feels modern. It feels powerful. The FreeNAS team has outdone themselves with this product. When you compare the two, the Synology NAS and this is for, and I know Synology NAS has enterprise level equipment, and they have things that are much more powerful than the 216 SE that I have. And it would be interesting to play with one of those. But I don't know that I would want to after playing with this FreeNAS here. This just gives me so many new things to learn. It also really gets me in the mindset of how administrators, first of all, how brilliant they can be if they set up things correctly, because there are so many little things that I can go in here and tweak and mess with to, improve my storage options, to set up different virtual machines, to do various tasks, to set up different jobs, to really get in there and understand the ins and outs of what it takes to maintain a data center out there. And I know a lot of system administrators come to my LUG group, system administrators watch my videos. So you're all probably laughing right now, like, wow, he's impressed by this. I just think it's so cool. I've had so much fun playing with FreeNAS recently, because it reminds me very much of my first moments in Linux, where there was just this little tiny fraction of things that I had learned and so much left to go. It's the same way with Linux, but now I have this new toy to play with, and I feel that exact same way again, where I have tons of information that I've got to learn to fill my brain with. And that's what makes this such an awesome experience. But at the same time, instead of me spending all of my time trying to figure out how to set up the thing or how to get certain things working, you don't have to do that with FreeNAS, because they've made the interface, user friendly enough to be able to work for people like me who are noobs, but also work for individuals who are looking for, very serious enterprise level backup solutions. They had given them all the advanced options within there that they can tune their systems with. But people like me who are brand new, I still can get in there and enjoy it because they've made the interface that good. And I think that speaks volumes about the quality of the programmers and the folks who are working on this product, because they have been able to accomplish something that so many companies strive to do and fail at horribly. And I can go out there and download this and start playing with it for free to learn it. And that is amazing. That helps really close the digital divide out there, to say, well, you've got to have a ton of money to be able to play with this type of stuff and buy licenses and all of that. They allow this as an open source product for anybody to get in there and learn and play with. I'm having so much fun. There's so much for me to learn, but if there is something specific you want to see about my setup, or some specific steps you want to see for you to set up your own, let me know in the comments below. I would be interested to help, put together more videos and training and things out there. While FreeNAS has done an amazing job on their own documentation, it is very well done out there. A lot of people learn by seeing. So they have great documentation with a lot of screenshots. You can see it here, absolutely brilliant. But there are certain times you just want to get in there and just tell me how to set up a backup, or how to get my first pool set up, or whatever it is that you need. Let me know in the comments below. I'll see if I can help you out. And until next time, I'm going to keep playing with this server. Let me know some things I should do with this that I haven't touched yet, because I know I am a noob. Get out there and fill your brains.
Don't forget to subscribe.